She moved to the most exclusive neighborhood in California, expecting admiration, influence, and instant acceptance. But what if the truth hiding behind those perfectly manicured gates is far colder, far sharper, and far more humiliating than anyone imagined? Because the story that quietly unfolded in Montecito doesn't sound like a fresh start. It sounds like a slow, silent rejection happening in plain sight. Not loud, not public, just consistent. And that's what makes it dangerous. It begins with someone who had no reason to lie. Richard Mineards, a longtime Montecito resident, someone who has watched the area evolve, didn't whisper his opinion, he delivered it bluntly. He described Meghan as someone who simply doesn't exist in the community. Invisible, not involved, not present. While Harry was described as jolly, approachable, the one who actually interacts. That contrast alone raises a question no one wants to ask out loud. Why is one welcomed while the other stays behind the gates?
And how do your neighbors around here view the Duchess?
Well, you don't really see her. I don't think they view her at all. I mean, she's added nothing to the neighborhood. And I don't know. I don't know her. I've never seen her. But I find him very charming.
And then it escalates, because silence might be excused once, maybe twice. But patterns start to look intentional. In May 2025, Mineards doubled down. He didn't soften his words. He sharpened them, saying she never even tried to fit in, never played the community game. Think about that. In a place where connections are currency, where presence is everything, choosing absence is not neutrality, it's a statement, a risky one. Then March 2026 arrives, and suddenly it's no longer just one voice. It's a shift in tone across the neighborhood. Reports begin to surface that neighbors are actively avoiding both Meghan and Harry. Avoiding, not ignoring, not indifferent. Avoiding, that word carries weight. It suggests effort. It suggests experience. It suggests something already happened behind closed doors that the public never saw.
Page 6 is saying that Harry and Meghan's Montecito neighbors are over them. They are avoiding them, says an area source. No one wants to be seen with them. It's not hate, they said. It's just a growing awareness that they're takers with zero self-awareness. Everyone's exhausted by them.
And yet, at the same time, there's a pushback, a carefully polished response claiming everything is fine, that relationships are great. But here's where things start to feel off. Because when reality and narrative don't match, someone is controlling the story. The question is, who? Then comes the moment that feels almost too uncomfortable to ignore. An 88-year-old Navy veteran, Frank McGinnity, walks up to their gate with a gift. Not a camera, not a demand, a gift. Something thoughtful, something local, something personal. And he's turned away, not even acknowledged, stopped at the gate, dismissed just like that. No conversation, no courtesy, no second chance. Now pause for a second, because this isn't a stranger crossing boundaries. This is a neighbor, an elderly man offering a welcome. And the door doesn't just stay closed, it refuses to even open. That moment doesn't just look bad. It echoes, it spreads, it becomes a story people repeat, quietly, relentlessly, and then, just when it feels like things couldn't get more revealing, another layer emerges. Jennifer Aniston enters the picture, a global star, a neighbor, a potential ally. And suddenly, the dynamic flips completely. Instead of being pursued, she becomes the one being pursued. Reports claim Meghan sent gifts, invitations, attempts to connect, carefully crafted gestures, strategic, maybe desperate, according to some.
Jennifer Aniston, who became famous in the TV series Friends, doesn't want a friendship with Meghan Markle. And she has just rejected the fellow actress in the most mortifying manner after moving to Montecito.
But nothing comes back. No replies. No public interactions. No acknowledgement. And then it gets worse, because behind the silence, there are whispers that those gifts were quietly discarded, ignored, dismissed without a response.
She goes on and on and on, sending things around until the person starts feeling, okay, I might do it. Or, oh, look, I don't want to upset her too much. You know, poor thing, she's always so sad. You know, but she's not. She's a tough woman herself. So, you know, that's it. If Meghan wants to send her stuff, it's going straight in the bin.
That's not just rejection, that's deliberate distance. And here's where the timeline turns almost unsettling, because this isn't new. This tension reportedly traces all the way back to 2011, before the titles, before the global attention, before the carefully constructed narrative. A brief appearance, a missed connection, a moment where one noticed and the other didn't. And that imbalance, it never corrected itself. Now connect the dots. A a neighbor who calls her invisible, a community that avoids her, a veteran turned away at the gate, a celebrity who won't even acknowledge her presence. These are not isolated incidents. These are fragments of a larger pattern forming quietly, consistently, almost deliberately. And the deeper you look, the more uncomfortable the question becomes, is this really about Montecito rejecting her? Or is there something about her presence that keeps triggering the same reaction again and again from completely different people? And just when you think the pattern has revealed everything, Montecito delivers something even more unsettling. Not louder reactions, not public confrontations, but something far more damaging what people say when they believe no one is listening. Because this isn't coming from tabloids anymore. This comes from within the neighborhood itself. Quiet conversations, closed-door opinions, the kind that only surface when someone decides to speak, and when they do, the words aren't softened, they're sharpened. One resident didn't hesitate to describe Meghan and Harry as the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet. Not influencers, not celebrities, not even controversial figures. Entitled, disingenuous, that's not criticism. That's a judgment of character. And it didn't come from across the world, it came from right next door. And then comes the contradiction that keeps repeating like a warning signal. They left the UK to escape media scrutiny, yet according to those same neighbors, they seem to chase it in the United States. That contradiction doesn't sit quietly. It lingers. It creates suspicion. Because when actions don't match intentions, people start questioning everything else. Every appearance, every project, every carefully timed headline. Then another voice steps in. Barry Marr, not a random critic, a communications expert, someone who understands image, perception, narrative control, and even he describes them as invisible. Think about that. In a place filled with celebrities who manage to balance privacy with presence, being completely unseen isn't impressive, it's unusual. Suspicious even, he calls the entire situation a traveling soap opera, something people are growing tired of watching. And when a PR expert calls your image exhausting, that's not just feedback, that's a warning. But it doesn't stop there, because now the consequences start becoming visible. Real, tangible, disruptive. According to multiple residents, life in Montecito has changed, and not for the better. Housing prices climbing, paparazzi lingering, tourists arriving not for the beaches or the calm, but to catch a glimpse of something or someone. The very thing people moved there to escape is now creeping back in. And who do they quietly blame? Not the system, not the media, her, and that's where the tension sharpens. Because Montecito isn't just any neighborhood. It's a carefully protected environment where people like Oprah Winfrey and Gwyneth Paltrow coexist without turning their lives into spectacles. They manage it, they control it, they understand the rules of invisibility when necessary. So when one household disrupts that balance, it doesn't go unnoticed. It gets remembered. And then comes the moment that feels almost impossible to ignore. The nickname, not official, not public, but repeated enough to stick. The prince and the starlet, not the duke, not the duchess, a starlet. A word that subtly strips away status, reframes identity, reduces presence. It's not just a label, it's a repositioning. And when multiple neighbors use similar language, it stops being coincidence. It becomes consensus. But perhaps the most cutting observation comes from something far more subtle: how they are perceived financially. Not poor, not struggling, but out of place. New money energy. That phrase doesn't scream, it whispers. And yet it carries weight in a community built on legacy, quiet wealth, generational power. It suggests someone who has access but not acceptance. Someone who has arrived but hasn't been fully let in. And that's where everything circles back to the beginning. The gates, the distance, the silence. Because what Meghan reportedly wanted was a reset, a new narrative, a clean slate surrounded by influence and opportunity. But what seems to have formed instead is something far more complicated. A quiet resistance, a social barrier that doesn't need headlines to exist. It operates in ignored invitations, unanswered gestures, closed gates, and whispered descriptions that never quite reach the public stage but shape everything behind it. So now the question isn't whether Montecito accepted her. The question is, did it ever intend to? Because when a community this exclusive decides someone doesn't belong, they don't announce it. They don't confront it. They simply make sure you feel it. And if this is what's already visible through fragments, quotes, and small encounters, then what else is being said behind doors that never open? Because something about this story still doesn't feel finished. It feels like it's building. And whatever comes next might finally explain why the silence has been so loud all along.